Journal members meeting. Journal members meeting for Local 2627, and we have a very honest and special guest that's here. His name is Henry Gorito. He's the executive director to DC 37. So he really needs no introduction. If you don't know, you should know that he's the one that made this new contract possible. It was him that was sitting at the helm and pretty much doing all the negotiations. So with no further ado, Henry, please take it away. Henry Barreto.
Good evening. I'm sorry. Thank you. Please.
I did already.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, so good evening, and thank you, Laura. Thank you for that kind introduction. I would say that I appreciate the comments that you made, but quite frankly, this contract could not happen without all of us, and you included as part of the negotiating committee, as well as the other presidents who participated. But I also want to thank the members who participated via answering surveys, sending concerns, bringing their priorities to us. I think that this is, I've been in the union for over 27 years. This is by far the most difficult contract that we have ever had to negotiate. Quite frankly, the reason why it was the most difficult is because of the conditions that stated between healthcare and what's happening with, the background, obviously, after the COVID, and some of the conditions that people were demanding. I want to thank you, and I want to thank the members for the patience. So we do have a collective bargaining agreement. As you probably heard, you probably have seen the terms. Essentially, there are 3% increases for every year of the contract, except for the last year, which has 3.25%. And then he has a $3,000 signing bonus. It's a minimum wage of $18 an hour, which doesn't affect most of 2627 or any 2627, but also has some provisions that are key, that are important for us. We heard from our members the need to have a child care trust fund, a fund that our members many times who have been asked to do so much can rely on. I think that we have been trying to create this for a while, so we've proposed and got a child care trust fund as part of the contract, more money for the health and welfare fund. And I think this is one of those things that goes very quietly, that people sometimes don't take for granted. Health and welfare fund provides services for actives and retirees. It provides services in terms of prescription drugs and dentals and things that our members are very much support of, meals. So the cost continues to go up, and so we got a contribution into our health and welfare fund for actives and retirees so that we can continue providing services to you. But there were other things that were important in this contract that were not just economics. Obviously, the economics were a key component of it. But one of the biggest things that we heard from you and from many of your colleagues was the need to have a flexibility in the workplace. Not only to have the possibility and the prospect of remote work, which is something that is critical, but also to have flex time and to have other things that are important in there. So we created a committee that looks at flexibility in the workplace. That is 4-day work week, 10-hour, 3 days, 12 hours, stagger shift, all of these things that are critical to a new reality. The world of work has changed completely, and there's a new reality in the way that we must approach and be flexible. And it was a key component to the retention and recruitment portion of our approach. There's so many vacancies in the city of New York, and so many of you have probably heard that. So it was critical for us to have the flexibility in the workplace to do that. And then it does have some other components like a salary equity panel that is critical to recruitment and retention, establishes, it provides money for unit bargaining. So there's a lot of stuff in this contract that are very positive, and we're hoping that the membership will ratify it. The decision is now up to you. Please tell me if you have not gotten your ballot, because the ballots went out, and if you have, please make sure you complete it and return it back to us. A key component that has created a lot of questions and you have heard some, and is the idea of premium-free health insurance as outlined. This was part of the agreement. As you know, there have been a lot of problems with the healthcare. We have this program, this fund called the Stabilization Fund, which was created in the early 1980s in order to stabilize the cost of health insurance over years. And because of COVID and because of a tremendous increase of cost of prescription drugs and hospitalization, the fund has basically been in the negative since July 1st, in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And we've been fighting over the idea that premiums will be implemented. So we fought back the idea of implementing premium. We remain the only municipality that I'm aware of in the United States where workers get their health insurance without any premiums, right? And so that was a key component of our agreement. There's all kinds of speculations out there about co-pays and about retiree health insurance. Let me be clear with this, and Laura sits in the bargaining committee. Health insurance for retirees is not negotiated through a collective bargaining agreement on the economics. So that is not only false, but it's misleading and misguided. We don't negotiate co-pays in the bargaining table on the economics. That is not in a bargain in the DC-37. That's done by the Municipal Labor Committee. So that's the misleading statement that I've heard repeatedly out there. So this, to us, we think it's a very good contract. But quite frankly, it's up to you to decide whether that is a good contract or not. So the ballots should have gone out. I think Natasha just put up the name for AAA and the telephone number. I'm sorry. It is done by a third party. It is not done by DC-37. A third party independent provider or auditor in this case will want to provide that. So it's up to you now. So the American Arbitration Association expected to count the ballot on March the 31st, at which point we'll start to process all the final details of the contract. I can tell you that what I heard a lot from members in the past has been, well, when can I get a check that break it into pieces since it is retroactive and I'm going to get a signing bonus and we're going to get killed with taxes? So what we've done is we've figured out a way to try to parcel out the payments so that they're done in intervals, so you don't get hit as hard with taxes as you would have if everything was processed in one shot. So we expect the April 28th check to have the $3,000 checks with your regular check as the first form of payment. The following check in May, a month later, to have your retroactivity, which will have all of your retro from day one to May of 2021. And then the final check in June, on the third straight month consecutively, to have not only your retro check, but also every reconciliation, because you would have a 3% increase in May of 21, a 22, a 23, and now this year. So we're talking, by that time, it would have been at 9%. So the last check would be rated retro for the last implementation of the increase. That's the essence of the deal. I mean, this was not hard. People think, obviously, that, we should have done better in some instances, but this was very difficult. I mean, negotiation, people don't realize this. 1% increase for city workers is $450 million. So think about what the cost of 15% would be, plus a signing bonus. And we understand things are difficult, but this was a contract that we worked really hard for, and hopefully we can get you to ratify so that we can get your money in return. process going. Now, one thing, there are two pieces that I didn't mention, which is the deadline for the committee, the implementation of the committee is June 1st of this year. We all know that there were agencies that had adopted a sort of the last until policy for telecommute, and agencies that had adopted a mentality that only the managers were going to be telecommuting. We want to get that community going immediately, but we can't do it until after ratification. So if you want to know the details about, how to do it and what's going to happen, I will say this to you. We found in many instances that for some people working 3 days out of a week without telecommuting with more hours, or 4 days out of the week was more convenient for them, and they have to be on a computer and on telecommuting. So there's as much value for those two things as telecommuting is, but we want to obviously explore all three. So we want to start that process going right away, but it can't happen until you decide, right? So ballots are out. I want to thank you for your patience. It took almost 2 years to get this contract completely done, but we couldn't have done it without you. And on behalf of myself and if you haven't heard it, the work that was done during the pandemic was incredible and exceptional. Many of our members died during the process of COVID, having to be deemed essential, having to come in. So we want to thank you for that service, because that is a service. Excuse me. Sorry, I have allergies. Thank you. That is a service that saved so many people and so many lives, and we want to thank you for your service and for everything you're doing for the city of New York. If you haven't heard it from anyone, please hear it from me. You make this city shine. You make this city work. So I wanted to thank you for that. There are a couple of other things that we're working on really, really hard that we need your help on. As you know, part of the problem with healthcare has to do with the rising cost of hospitals. Have been incredible in raising and overpricing procedures at 300-400% of what they get from Medicaid. And so we have raised legislation at the City Council that would not only require transparency for billing, but also require people to publicize what it would take for you to have a C-section, what it would take for you to have a knee replacement, what any of these things would be. So we have this bill that's been introduced. The council member, Melling, we have had several hearings. They need to hear from you. I think it's only fair that users, providers, that we all know what transparency looks like and that those hospital prices are published. So we need your support of that. We're pushing back in Albany a couple of provisions that are problematic for us. We're looking for an enhancement and improvement in Tier 6. We started last cycle. We're doing it again because Tier 6 has become a very difficult problem for recruitment and retention, where people have to contribute more and stay longer. So we have a small legislative push where we're going to be doing that. So we need folks to participate. We need folks to participate in helping us move the legislative process on Tier 6 on pension, and to help us move the legislative process right here locally. Council members hear from me, hear from Laura, hear from Odette, our political action director, and from Jamila, who's also associate director. But most importantly, want to hear from you, because they know your constituency, they know that you vote, they know you participate, and they want to hear directly from you. So we are pushing really, really hard on that. And we'll continue to fight for you and fight for the members of this union until we're here. And so I want to thank you again, and I will take any questions. Oh, one thing I would say that there's a lot of speculation out there that there's a hidden contract, that they're tired of it. Folks, if you read the summary, we can't do a contract until the summary is basically approved, because then you have to go and put all those pieces in it. But if you read it very carefully, not only does it say premium-free health insurance, but there's a provision on the bottom that clearly says all terms and conditions of the contract will remain in place. So there's no other changes, there's no other amendment, no other written surprise something somewhere else. We know that there's speculation over there by other groups who are pretending to do that, trying to create chaos because they want people to contribute to their campaign. So let me just say that and stop there. And I'll take questions, Laura. I know that I have another event that I have to participate at today, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all as many times as possible, and I welcome the opportunity to come back. But I really wanted to thank you and tell you that it's up to you now to get this contract ratified. So the ballots are out, and hopefully you would have returned yours. Thank you. And Laura, I don't know how you want to handle, but I will take questions or any questions that you may have at this time.
Yes, we do have quite a few questions in the chat. You did touch on one of the members' question about the email that went out regarding the Municipal Labor Committee vote. And let's see, somebody asked about IRA. That right there, you have to talk to, when somebody asks about reporting to taxes, that's something you probably have to talk to the tax professional. And regarding the CSM,
so the one thing I would say, though, let me just two things, too quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So on the IRS issue, a separate check would have constituted a bonus payment, which would have been taxed higher than if it's part of your regular check. That's all I would say. We looked at it, and it would have been different if we had done a standalone check that really did not have helped you, because it would have been considered a bonus check, particularly with sign bonus. So that would not have worked. Go ahead, Lorna.
Okay, and somebody asked about, CSM and COMs, their longevity will come at the last, we will negotiate sometime during the last year of the contract, so that's not what voting for this contract will allow us to be able to effectively use the 0.50 to get those titles who don't have longevity and so to get them in addition to growth. So, you see, yeah, Henry, can you talk a little more about what's going on the MLC? Because I know people do have, that is a big question.
This is really critical. I mean, because you've heard a lot of the stuff. So let me try to be as clear, as transparent as it is, right? So back after the time of physical crisis, the city of New York set a standard on something called established an administrative code standard that basically said that the city would only pay out to the HIP HMO rate. That HIP HMO rate set the rate for everybody else. So think about this. We have about 432,000 contracts covering 1.3 million lives or so. Of those 432,000 contracts, only about 90,000 or so of the city are in HIP. But those 90,000 set the rate for all 432,000 contracts and pay the rate for all 1,000,003, right? And so this idea, this fund that was created meant that if you were in GHI or you had HIP, the fund that supplied that money for the health insurance would be basically the difference between HIP and GHI. So if GHI was $500, and HIP was $400, $100 will go into the fund. If vice versa, if HIP was $600 and GHI was $500, then $100 will come out of the fund or would come out of some other form of payment and so on and so forth. That's called the equalization. That's the rate that sets out the cover for actives and for retirees. There are decisions that were made along the way, beginning in 2014, where more pressure came. The fund was at $3 billion at that time. Well, a lot of the stuff was normally it comes out of the health insurance in order to stabilize the rate, went out of that fund and into the health insurance rate. And I don't want to complicate and overcomplicate. The bottom line is the fund goes into the negative. since the 2014 deal, the money going out has gone up, and the money going in has gone down. So at some point, there was a point where that money, basically, there was a delta or a nexus that just hit into it and went into the negative. That money had funding for your PICA program, which is the psychotropic injectable therapy and asthma medication. It has money to provide for $165 for actors and for retirees that goes into the benefit. Let me just say this. DC 37 still continues to provide prescription drugs for the retirees, unlike a lot of the unions, and for the spouse and beneficiaries. So that money dwindles out. That money has been provided for us for Medicare Part D, for both pre-Medicaid and retirees. So the bottom line is we have to change the way the structured health insurance happens for everybody. For actors, for retirees, for Medicare retirees. So there was a three-part process done. On the one hand, we issued an RFP that came in for the PPO, which is basically your GHI with Empire, and we're going now through the submission. The aim of doing that saving, or those restructuring, was to eliminate the structural deficit. So that PPO RFP came out, it was done, it was issued, we're waiting for it. So for actives, that will be going through. That is done with all 100 plus unions, 152 bargaining agreements, and that's a weighted vote. In addition to that, there's a retiree health care program called Medicare Advantage that was voted on originally in the 2014 agreement that was put out right now. Medicare Advantage is a national program where the federal government essentially gives money to us or to the union, in this case, to run the program so that we wouldn't have to subsidize retiree benefit the way that was being done when the fund had basically essentially collapsed. Once the fund reached about $1.8 billion deficit, the city stopped doing so. We are in the MLC, separate from the economic negotiation, there was a proposal to vote on that. And then the third new change or big revamp is an RFP for drugs that was issued for the psychotropic injectable chemotherapy medication because of the way the system works. So altogether, all these three different buckets are aimed at generating about $1.2 billion, $1.3 billion of savings for all those three programs. And so there was a vote on one of those issues for the retirees, for retiree health coverage for Medicare retirees. There was a vote and an approval on the RFP on the selection of a new contract for the prescription drugs, the ESI that saves $280 million. This program called the Medicare Advantage, we believe has been a contract renegotiation that far exceeds the benefit of the existing people. We tried to do an opt-out option where people can leave right now, and that was unable because the city council did not amend the administrative code that I mentioned that came in the 80s. So right now, the program for retiree healthcare coverage will be done either through a Medicare Advantage program, which is done through Aetna, which is a PPO, by the way. There's a lot of speculations about, well, if they don't take this doctor, they don't take the MA. Quite frankly, we've done the analysis. We pushed the number by having a PPO with a network that was as broad as the one. The coverage is the doctors about 97%. We're going to be launching a site where you can put in your doctors and you can call in. There's a call center that will be established for city only where people can call in. There are improved benefits. There's lower out-of-pocket experience. There's not only greater reimbursement, but more services under the MA program. And for those who are in HIP VIP will be able to remain in HIP VIP with no changes. There's all kinds of lies and speculations about copay increases that is just simply not true. This program is free and expected to start no later than October 1st of this year. If you're Pre-65, if you're in a Medicaid, pre-Medicare retiree, this will not affect you. You will be going into the new PPO program. Right now, we're going through the final RFP changes. But quite frankly, you need to know this, right? Our healthcare costs went from about $3 billion in 2013 to about $13 billion this year. That's a $10 billion increase. And a lot of the costs that we thought were going to be covered by the federal government for COVID didn't. And quite frankly, between those facilities that I mentioned before, those hospitals, the tremendous increase of the cost of prescription drugs, utilization by very unscrupulous providers, we had to change the system because that fund was no longer there, and we had to do it in order not to pass along premiums, which is what happens. You know what happened to transit. Those of you who have co-workers that work in transit, and senior with state workers where they pay 28% of that premiums that are pour out, and would have hurt us and the workers more incredibly. And so we had to make a decision. And so the MLC, as I said, Municipal Labor Committee, which is comprised of more than 100 unions, took a vote to go forward with those changes. Not just retiree changes. Actives, pre-Medicare retirees, prescription drugs for the PICA program, all kinds of restructuring. We are doing things that are smart. In my opinion, we're going for centers of excellence. We're shifting away from false providers who are out-billing. There's a complete change on reimbursement that is coming for value-based contract that is embedded into the new RFP. We know that there are providers who out-bill that will take an individual not based on quality of care. We need to do something better in improving the mental health piece of this. It's very hard to get mental health providers under the current contract. And so we are making changes. So in the vote took place for retirees, it was 79% in favor of this, and we're moving forward with that retiree group in the Medicare Advantage program prospectively. So I hope that gives you more details on what we're doing and on the information that you requested, Laura.
Thank you. Somebody definitely was asking that question. And somebody asked about CUNY bargaining.
So we had the first unit bargaining for CUNY. We spent CUNY and hoped to CUNY that, now that we have a pattern that we can do. I think the challenge for us has been that the CUNY is funded by both the city and the state. The state pattern is actually lower than the city pattern because he had 2 and 2% at the front end of the year, 2 and 2, 3 and 3. Whereas the city pattern is 3, 3, 3, 3, and we have 3 1/4 at the end. So that's a challenge. We are expecting, we had a scheduled bargainings follow-up section on Monday. We heard word today that they want to change that. I don't think, Laura, I don't know if you were notified, but they know when to change that to the 29th of March, and we're changing the time of negotiations. But CUNY is a priority. Somebody's sharing.
Somebody's trying to share. Hold on. Ricky, stop sharing. Okay, sorry.
So we're priorities to CUNY. Right now, obviously we're pushing really hard because we need the state legislature to fund any contract, and that contract will be obviously done in the context of we need the state legislature to approve. One thing that is difficult between CUNY is that the state has a year plan. As you know, they have to do the budget by April 1st, whereas the city has the financial plan that has 5 years, so that's always difficult. But we are pushing to get CUNY to settle around the parameters of the city pattern already established.
Okay. Somebody also asked, hold on, yes, let me go back up. They asked about Tier 6 legislation. What is going to happen, or what changes are we looking to do for Tier 6?
Well, I think for us, Tier 6 was terribly unfair, right? What was done, it increased the retirement age, and it increased the contributions, as you know, from a Tier 4. We basically skipped Tier 5, although there was Tier 5 for other unions, CSEA and others. But we want to reduce the contribution rate. We want to reduce the retirement age on the Tier 6. In addition to that, I think that for physically taxing positions, you pay an extra amount and you're not able to retire within the physical amount part of it. So Tier 6 needs to be completely changed. We're looking to make it more like Tier 4. So a conglomerate of unions led by DC 37, a part of the AFL-CIO, is making also pushing an amendment to Tier 6 so that we are reducing the contributions to closer to Tier 4. We were able to amend a portion of Tier 6 last time during the last legislative session, including some very clear provisions for overtime and the overtime cap that has been so difficult for us to remove from this tier. And so we have a series of amendments to Tier 6 to make it more like Tier 4.
Okay. Oh, somebody asked again about how is it a coincidence? Is there any connection to the contract and what they call the Medicare Advantage? The Medicare Advantage care plan is being pushed through around the same time this contract was settled. Is there a connection?
No. This is amazing. There are conspiracy theories and there are people who have portrayed an idea or a narrative because it's convenient to themselves, to the organization, that tries to link this. If you're smart people, people who are here, you can read, you go back to the 2014 deal. The 2014 deal had a Medicare Advantage component to it, right? The 2018 deal, the 16 deal, had a Medicare Advantage component to it. There's been a Medicare Advantage in the works since 2014 in a way that has been in the lab. I think what's different now in how they move forward, quite frankly, was the demise of the stabilization fund and the fact that there was no subsidy and no more fund to provide services for those things. Any savings achieved to Medicare Advantage is going back to the stabilization fund, and therefore it goes back to provide services in healthcare to the very people we're talking about. It's not going to the general fund. It's not going to some private coffer. It's not going to an agency. It's going back to replenish the stabilization fund. And those deals, we can question them. We can say that we're good. People would say that they're bad. They were the deals that were made. In 2014, Lillian was the executive director. I was here. I was associate director. I've been here with DC 37 for 27 years. But the one thing that people don't talk about is that deal in 2014 had $165 per member, per active member, and per retiree go back to the unions to provide prescription drugs. Right now, DC 37 provides prescription drugs in the form of Part D for retirees, for Medicaid retirees, where if you see unions like the UFT and others who don't provide it, we continue to provide that. That is a $50 million program that is replenished from contributions that come in to the union, both for negotiated contribution and the $165 that we're no longer getting because the fund went basically in the negative, that provides services to the retirees and will continue to provide services to the retirees. Prescription drugs are not cheap, and we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on those prescription drugs, and they continue to be there. So all these conspiracy theory about there's no coincidence and a line, you made a deal, it's like, where were those conspiracy theories in 2014 or 18 or 16 when that language was there? I think that's something. Look, we took this contract, which was difficult, and we approached it with those presidents, and we tried to get as much economically as we could, understanding how hard inflation understanding how difficult, but also understanding that if we were to go, find a way to pay for it, that keeping health insurance affordable and premium-free for our members was a critical component. That $1.8 billion that's in the hole, if you do the math, right, if 1% is equivalent to $450 million, and we have $1.8 million, and it's going to be done so that you don't have to pay any premiums, that is an additional raise that you're getting if you had not imposed premiums. So we have to balance those things out. And people want to take things out of context. They want to color it the way they are. People will say and do what they are. Respect some of it. I have people who felt that the Medicare Advantage program was subpar to that of a regular Medicare Advantage program. I hear questions like, you're privatizing a health insurance. Wait a minute. You have Emblem Health with Empire. The alliance that was selected had Emblem Health and Empire, the same providers. You have people who have been complaining to me that they have no coverage with Emblem in some places. And you have Aetna, who for many people have a better benefit as a PPO to come in to provide services. And people are complaining about pre-existing conditions because they were concerned that those pre-existing conditions would lead to cuts in benefit. But we pushed back on behalf of those people and now get pre-existing condition, most of them removed from the contract. We worked really hard to get a third party to review any, lab work and all that stuff. It's removed from the contract. So then you would think, what's the objection now? If most of the benefits are going to be improved and most of the contract, 97% of the providers are included, then people still the theory, still the conspiracy, and I probably killed Jimmy Hoffa somewhere around their way. People are concerned. I get it. People are concerned. Change is not easy, but this is not something we could have afforded. We could not have afford a status quo system that was $1.8 billion that did not provide funding for people program. Laura, you know this. Both my grandparents died from cancer. To have the idea and the prospect that because there's no money anymore, we're not going to provide cancer medication to folks, chemotherapy, injectable, diabetes medication, because the fund runs out, it's unconscionable. And so if you want to create a theory and a narrative, there were people who spoke to me who I respect a lot and say, you're wrong, Henry. You're doing this, you're selling out this, and I would say, well, what is your solution? What is the solution you're providing to us? And quite frankly, we went through a lot of this, and I think this is the best possible outcome and solution that we could have had. And, we'll continue to work to try to make sure that we have the best services for the retirees. I'm a retiree in training, and people don't know that, but I'm a retiree in training, and I hope that I've been working for the union for 27 years. Before that, I worked for the city. At one time, I want to retire, and I want to go into a crappy health insurance. I don't want to go into a health insurance that's going to be, have all these kinds of conditions for me or for my children or for anybody else. But I also recognize that if you have a program that is, $1.8 billion in the negative, that is threatening not to cover the very essential things that those same retirees relied on, I think I have to be responsible. And I think in that responsible, sometimes people get scared. But I think in the end, people will see that Medicare Advantage is an improved plan for what we have. By the way, we went to $11.99. They did the same Medicare Advantage, had the same fear. We had went and visited CWA, the Communication Workers of America. You may remember they had a site for Verizon near the DC 37 headquarters. They were on strike. They went through Medicare Advantage. We went through 32BJ and to a numerous of unions, even unions outside of New York, who have implemented this. And by far, the reaction has been positive and better, an improvement of the current one. And we're hoping that the changes that we make in this program far improves those programs that I mentioned before because of being a PPO and because of the way that we have negotiated the contract. So we're moving forward with changes. Hopefully with time the fear will disappear, and we're going to move forward with a better plan for our actors and for our returns. But I just want to do a little time check because I do have to get on a call at 7 o'clock, and so just wanted to be here.
Somebody asked, how does the alternative committee or the flexible committee affect? Will they get it? They want to know where they get it.
Affect what? Affect what? You repeat the last part?
NYCHA.
Well, as you know, NYCHA had taken the unconscionable position that only managers would be able to telecommute, right? And so that was horrible. We filed the appropriate grievances, and we have their signatories to this contract. So they would be affected and will be included as part of the alternative flexible.
Good. We also have some people who have their hands up. Because I've been only asking questions. I see.
Yeah, Jonathan, let me address this. There's a lot of stuff out there, right? A lot of fake news, a lot of misinformation out there. Obviously, there's a group that has requested funding from people, and the way they do it, they've done it by raising fear, by speaking untruth, by repeating things that are old. There were things that were on this contract that have been put out there. They're hidden contracts, and look for this and look for that. Go back to the 2018 agreement. You looked at what was in there. The summary agreement is identical with the exception of the numbers in everything, in way, shape, or form, even in the language. And yet they're somehow making this whole thing. I'm going to tell you this. The current system that we have for healthcare is completely inefficient. It is not, I'll say it again, not negotiated through the economic agreement. The economic agreement is a standalone agreement. The only thing I can tell you, the economic agreement has to do with premiums because that has an impact on it. But all these other changes that have been taking place as a result of, as I mentioned, healthcare providers. I'm going to give you an example, right? There's a bill that was passed in separate by the federal government that says the hospital had to disclose how much they got. And I use this as an example. You may recall when COVID came in, the city was asking all the city workers to either get vaccinated or get tested every week. Well, in the process of doing that, the insurance was covering the tests. There's one hospital provider that's charging us over $1,000 per COVID test that you can get for free at home. Over $1,000. There is it's crazy the way that they charge the providers. And by the way, they may only provide you, when you go to the hospital, they may only charge you out of pocket up to $300 out of pocket. But the reality is that they're costing or charging the insurance 400% over what they take from Medicaid. That means if you go and have a hip replacement, or if you go have a colonoscopy, or you go have any procedure whatsoever, even a CAT scan, the way you do it, the system and some providers are basically robbing us blind. They're charging people 400%, and even within facilities of their own network, that cannot continue. So what people are putting out there about selling the health insurance, I mean, I hear this a lot. My insurance is not good, or I don't like the providers. I live in the Bronx, just so you know. When I first came in, there were 0 providers in the Bronx, other than Montefiore. We have 38,000 people in the Bronx. And every provider in the Montefiore was the only one that was attached to a hospital. So I raised hell. I said, why do we have more people living in Suffolk County where you have centers there, and we don't have a single provider here? So there's been a lot of speculation about selling now, because as I said, there's some folks out there who want to speculate for their own, because as people get fearful, they're drawn to them, they contribute to them, they're raising money out of that fear. You know, I try to answer as many questions as I can on this issue, but I can't ask folks, okay? Ricky, you've heard of Aetna, right? Aetna Health Insurance. Aetna is the national insurance. It had more providers than Emblem Health does right now. Right? For retirees is Emblem is being switched to Aetna. There are more doctors in this program than there were before, because Aetna has a bigger coverage. So that is not conspiracy, it's just false. I'll tell you one better. We're setting up a centralized call, because this is not going to happen until October, where you can call and check anywhere by zip code. In fact, you can go online. There's a website. Anywhere by zip code, the doctors that are covered. In Texas, in Georgia, in Florida. And you can verify for yourself.
The plan is on the OLR website, the information about that.
Yeah. You're in office today, and I'm sorry. No. I'm just saying, I'll send an email. Laura, if you can send it around.
Yeah. I'm just worried that active people, it doesn't affect anyone who's active. Anyone that's in the local right now is active.
Or pre-Medicare retirees. So if you retire, you're not 65 or over, because this is where the confusion is. There's no changes on that program.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to anyone that's active. And that's my only concern, that if we send it out to everyone, it's going to confuse people thinking that it's affecting them when it don't. It only affects those who are retired, and that is over 65. But, Ricky, you can go to the Google New York City Office of Labor Relations and go look at the retiree, and you can see the contract. You can see the information about that there.
Yeah.
Okay. And somebody was asking last question. Somebody was saying, how is it the contract is not covering inflation?
Well, I mean, the rate of inflation was 6.3% nationally. New York was slightly lower with the Inflation Reduction Act. If you go back to the rate of inflation as opposed to 3%. Look, that was one of the biggest things. There's an argument that has been made in past contracts. We have contracts that have been higher than inflation. We have contracts that have been lower than inflation. But you have to consider the fact that if the cost of healthcare has gone up so high exponentially, and you're not getting that healthcare, that the premium shifted to you, that's a savings that's coming out. So we don't bargain on a vacuum. We have to bargain with all the facts. We have the rates of healthcare. We have the rate increases here. We have recruitment and retention. We have a lot of work. And with this negotiation, the way things are, this was the best that we could have done, including a $3,000 signing bonus, which we know is cash, but should help out in addition to the 3% retroactivity that we did. And 3% moving forward. Laura, I thank you. Appreciate it. Laura, I have to leave. So I have to be at 7. It's already. So I appreciate everybody. Thank you. Please return your ballot as soon as possible. So please return your ballots as soon as possible. One way or another, if you like it,